Okay, to make a start. Yeah. Tuesday, 7th of December, 7 p.m. And I welcome Councillor Todd, who's come, and also our police officers, as well as our councillors. So very welcome. And can I thank the councillors, because last time we had a meal out together, which I thought was good, and it was quite reasonable. It's good to be in your company for the social.
And I would say we ought to thank the mayor or stroke chairman for hosting us last night.
Thank you.
It was very much appreciated.
Oh, thank you. Thank
And
you.
I hope that when you left the first venue, you were still sober by the time you left the second venue.
Totally.
Oh, that's all right.
So just a reminder that this meeting is being recorded. So if you've got a mobile phone, please put it on silent. From the 28th of January, our next meeting, we will be live streaming these. So they will be live streamed, just to warn you about that. The change of standing orders, using my discretion to suspend the requirement to stand. If you don't want to, I find that difficult, but it's very important that you raise your hand to speak as the council writes it down.
Chairman, as regards that, I feel that it's a dumbing down of the meetings.
What?
Not standing, because you cannot project your voice if you're sitting. It's like sitting around a dining room table having a discussion. For example, when Rod has been sitting up there, I've never heard a word he's said, because this room is very acoustically challenged. And I just feel that we ought to be adhering to what most councillors adhere to, is protocol. I understand there are some problems with some councillors, and I perfectly understand that, but I think the rest of us are perfectly able to stand and project our voices to the rest of the council.
And I suggest that if you find it difficult to stand, you don't need to stand. If people can speak in very clear voices, that helps, has been recorded. If it makes your voice clearer to stand, then do feel free to stand. Okay? Any distractions?
We've received apologies from councillors Bartlett and councillor Trim. Councillor Bartlett's at a cabinet meeting with Dorset Council, and councillor Trim is non-business related. We've also received apologies from councillor Morgan, our ward councillor as well.
Okay, so can I propose to accept those apologies? Councillor Wheeler and the seconder, Councillor Bennington, all those in favour? Raise your hands. Thank you. Okay, declaration of interest, request for dispensation. So, Councillor Brown.
Town crier and member of the Wimborne militia.
Thank you.
I've been
Yeah, okay. Can I just say that we've got an item on Birchdale Road, and I found out when we did a site visit that I've got an ex-colleague and friend who lives by chance on Birchdale Road, so I thought I'd just mention that. Anybody else?
Can I just make a point going back to the last point, that having viewed some of the YouTube, it assists the viewing of YouTube when the councillor stands up, because otherwise it's quite difficult to see who is actually speaking.
Oh, you mean visually?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
With no public participation, I don't think tonight. So, Dorset, please, do you want to give your report, Simon Payne?
Actually, I want to report on two serious crimes that we had last year. One you'll be pleased about. So we had the arson car fires, so we had 14 cars set on fire, a house. We've also had two other little series prior to that. The gentleman, they've actually got the case to the CPS at the moment, so we're just awaiting the charging decision on that. So they finally got it to the CPS. And also the attempt murder back in March 2023. One male's already got 8 years in prison. They've rearrested two, a new arrest regarding assisting offender for the course of justice. And one of the original offenders is also back at the CPS, so hopefully we'll get a decision on charges.
Okay.
Those two normally takes about 3 to 4 months, unfortunately, especially in complex cases. Major issue we are having in Wimborne is antisocial behaviour. So we've been trying to tackle that with town council, with the county council, and lots of other things. I just wanted to give an update on that. So since we've really started, I don't know if you're aware of the community consequence scheme or if I need to explain it. Anybody not aware of the community consequence scheme? Okay, community consequence scheme is a low-level scheme run by the police and Dorset County Council, where we deal with children under the age of 18 committing antisocial behaviour. So not crime, but antisocial behaviour. So as soon as we identify somebody, we've actually made a new one now. So the first level is safe and well letter. So we had a group of about 30 kids congregating in Cranmead outside the old Marks and Spencers, causing a bit of mayhem, especially after school, mostly school kids. So as a result of working with the school, the CCTV, any kid that was there, we sent a letter home to their parents from the safe and well letter saying, your child is in this area where there is antisocial behaviour. If they're committing antisocial behaviour, and that be as minor as one boy got something, he picked up a load of blood in the flower pots and was sticking it in the windows, we then send a letter home which is called a C1. So this is to parents saying your child is involved in antisocial behaviour. Do you know what they're up to when you let them out? After that, it goes up to a C2, where it's a letter and a visit. After that, we look at acceptable behaviour contracts, where it's a civil contract, where they sign, we will agree to certain things, we will abide by this. It's a civil contract. If they breach it, it's not enforceable by law, but we then look at forcing it and going into court orders, where basically if they commit an offence, we can arrest them and then go straight to court. So since the end of July, we've sent out 11 safe and well letters, 10 C1s, so this is the first stage. What C1 intends to do is to basically narrow it down, because our team can't deal with 30 kids all at the same time dealing with antisocial behaviour. By sending these letters home, basically we try to get kids with the good parents to drag them away so they're not there. So 10 had C1s, 4 went to C2, so 4 of those 10 have been upped to another level. So that's dropped off 60%, and out of that, 3 have gone to an acceptable behaviour contract. One's refused to sign it, which is not good for them because now we can then just go straight into court orders and things like that. So that's how we deal with antisocial behaviour. Out of that, 3 kids have been interviewed for several offences such as criminal damage, shoplifting, assaults. 1 is due to be interviewed soon. So that's the antisocial behaviour issues. Kids still hanging around, and the group are still hanging around, but because we've been hitting them, they don't seem to be committing as many offences as what they were before. It was a daily occurrence with a certain young child who basically every day was doing an offence and just got it. So we've been really hitting down on him. Regarding that, yes, there are sporadic offences, but we're not having much crime in Wimborne. We did have spare car thefts, or theft from cars. I think there was about 2 in Wimborne and a few in Corfwall and a few Burwood and around. That gentleman been arrested. Unfortunately, we can't link him to the car thefts. We can just link him to a car, but we know he's around in the theft, but he's been dealt with for other offences. Other than that, that's basically about it for the police report.
So just to ask you a question, in terms of the antisocial behaviour, do you think that's having as much impact as you'd hoped?
So, yes, I was, to be honest, need to touch some wood somewhere. It appears to be, we put the effort into Wimborne, they all go to Corfwall. We put the effort into Corfwall and they go to Wimborne, put the effort into both, they go to Burwood and then they come back again. So it is displacing, but there are certain kids you have to criminalise them and you have to deal with them criminally, because it doesn't matter what you do with their parents, they're either not going to listen to the parents or the parents aren't supportive, and you get that problem. What we just try and do with this scheme is to just get rid of the waifs and strays that hang on the end of the criminals, so we don't have to criminalise as many.
Okay,
And stop them before they do it.
Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you for the report. I'm conscious I saw on social media about 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks ago, there was a motorbike theft. You know anything about that? So it's all caught on CCTVs. The young girl.
Don't, no.
Yeah,
I can have a look into it.
I'm surprised because it's a relatively new bike.
In Wimborne,
Yes.
new estate,
No, this will be in, they rent a flat. But I can get you the details.
I'll have a look at, I can probably name who's done it as well, to be honest.
Really? Okay. Okay, it's
It's quite easily name who's done it.
right,
We've
okay.
had a family move from a different area. That I can't think of it.
It's in the centre of Wimborne anyway, so.
And the other thing I did forget, we've just done a drugs warrant last week, made social media, for a person who was dealing to young children, found a substantial amount of cannabis, knife, BB gun, taser, and quite a bit of cash. So that's still ongoing regarding that, still looking at a potential intensify offence against children. And Nicola is currently generating at least one other warrant. We can look at doing addresses for the drugs related issues.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from councillors?
Well done.
Councillor Sammy?
If, I walk my dog around, see things, should I, for intelligence and information, who should I?
There's two ways of doing it. The best way is to do it online.
Yeah.
So Dorset Police Online, it says about reporting crime. If you wrote, that's quite cumbersome, but if you rotate all the way down to the bottom, it's got like other information, and there is where you can report intelligence. We're quite happy to take it, but then we just got to put it on the computer, which is not a problem.
Yeah.
The drugs warrant was a result of community intelligence, and that one of my members staff lived about 3 or 4 doors down from the drugs warrant, saw what was going on, so it did help. So it's not as easy as anything, as easy as pie to get a drugs warrant. Nowadays, it used to be, you go to any call, you can bamboozle them with jargon regarding drugs warrants, and you could get a warrant quite easily. Now, you go to a specific drugs warrant call, normally Yeovil or Bristol, you have to supply them all the information about a day or two before, that if we had good 2 months worth of information of intelligence, and at least every couple of days something going on. And they still sort of ask me about 20 questions at that point for me to get a warrant.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks very much for coming. You're welcome to stay, but if you've got to go.
You want to say anything? I did finish at 4, so I've only come back for this, so I'm probably going to leave. That's okay.
Fine.
But any questions, you've got my emails, please let me know.
Give me a shout. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Todd, do you want to say a few words?
Andy? I'm very worried that I might produce too much and be a little bit too loud for you. Apologise about in advance. I had my first case of homelessness that has come in. It was section 21 notice, so it wasn't their fault, it was father-in-law evicting them. What had happened is they broke their relationship with the homeless, with the housing department had broken down. They were living in unsuitable accommodation, disabled child, under 18s, split family, very unhappy. But it all comes down to communication. And what appears to have happened is that words that are written down aren't necessarily interpreted in the manner in which they were intended. And so people had stopped talking. They had no electricity. They didn't have washing facilities. It was all a bit grim. I've managed to facilitate further conversations. They're being assessed this week. They now have the power to change the way forward themselves if they have a choice that they can make, which I think is about as good as we can make it happen. They won't able to find anything in the private sector around it. That's a problem that we're all familiar with out around here.
Thank you.
Second issue, and I don't want to queer your pitch, but Birchdale Road. I had a meeting with the planner today on the site on the Quarterjack on another matter. As you'll be aware, because of the change in the way things are defined at the moment, we now have a 5.02 year housing supply. That means that we have a degree of protection from development on Greenbelt that we didn't previously have when we were being defined as East Dorset. East Dorset, I believe, we have a housing supply of 2.5 years, which means that any developer can come along and prove exceptional need because we don't have the housing supply. Now that we do it on a Dorset-wide level, we have 5.02, gives us a level of protection. Possibly as a result of that, the appeal against the refusal for the Birchdale Road development has been withdrawn. Now, that doesn't mean that in a year's time, when there is a reassessment of the housing supply, if we've ducked below 5.05 5 years, they may resubmit it. But as it stands at the moment, we have 12 months of protection from that coming back, which I'm sure the local community will be very, very pleased to hear when I tell them tomorrow. Safe Spaces scheme. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this ongoing campaign that I've been fighting a losing battle over since May, since the election. Ever since the participation of Councillor Hart at the local last DABTC meeting, when he raised the subject with Nick Ireland, leader of the council. I have now been given a meeting in January, the end of January, with, now there is a whole list of the great and the good. Steve Young, the community safety team leader, Louise Donovan, the safeguarding Eastern Purbeck region, Karen Graham, the community safety officer for the Police Services Department, and Joe Turner from Dorset Police will all be attending this meeting, but I'll have the opportunity to pitch the Safe Spaces scheme to them. Now, I don't know whether you are familiar with the Safe Spaces scheme. I briefed you on the last time with my last report, I believe. But essentially, during the last election, I was talking to the leader of the girls, the guys group, local troop, and she was saying that the navigator badge that the troop had been undertaking, they had gone from Wimborne Town Square by bus into Poole bus station, and when they arrived in Poole bus station, the bus driver, I believe, had given them a presentation on the BCP scheme, the Safe Spaces scheme, about where they could go should they feel in any way under threat or being harassed in any way or bullied. And there are specific logos that are available in shops, and I believe shopkeepers or the library or whoever have been PBS checked to make sure that they're a suitable adult. And it impressed the girls sufficiently that they then in turn asked their leader, who then asked me to look into it. And I believe you've heard about this as well, directly from Horseman as well. I will be pitching this at this meeting in January. There will be objections from the officers. I'm anticipating that right now, and those will be resources and money, because they are a perennial problem that we are facing at the moment. I'm going to work on that from a number of sectors. Having your support to pitch in as well will make a big difference, and I know I have your support. But I'm also going to be speaking to head teachers in local areas to say, if I have their written support for it as well. If there is a possibility that the council could speak to local retailers or local establishments that might be willing at this point to be exploring the idea of being involved in the participation in the scheme, that would be helpful as well, because the officers are going to look and say, how much time is this going to take to recruit people to be part of it? How much money is it going to cost? But hopefully we can organise a sufficient number of people to say, we may be interested. It at least gets us to the next stage, when we know costing of what the fee would take in order to get it off the ground. The next item is Oldie, slightly out of your patch, but it has a major impact on me. I have formally referred the Oldie application to the planning committee. Now, I could have let it stay with the delegated officer who was going to be looking at it, and that's what happened in, I think it's Sandford, over where there was a little application that went through the on around about with a green belt involvement and a worry about the volume of traffic that was going to be attracted into the Purbeck. The planning officer who had the delegated responsibility to make the decision refused the application. It was then referred to committee on appeal. And on appeal, it was passed. So I could have left it with the officer and said, not said, they would have come to their own conclusion, obviously, and risk and assume that they would refuse it for the variety of reasons that we're all familiar with. But I've had I've had best part of 200 people write to me registering opposition or support, that I felt that it was worthy having a conversation in public to ensure that everybody was comfortable with the arguments that were discussed. I was surprised the messages of support for the application all arrived on the same day. So I did a bit of digging in order to verify that they were valid. It seems that it was a processing problem, that they just got processed and uploaded on the website at the same time. I actually spoke to several of the people who I know from standing in children's playgrounds with, you know, there were other parents at the same time. They had submitted it, but it had been done via the Oldham website, which was why they were all appearing at the same time, and all had exactly the same applications on these. So because there were so many people in registering support, it wasn't simply something that we could adjust. Trying to get this. So hopefully being discussed out and open will answer any questions. My final point is council of surgeries. Now at the moment, I represent Coal Hill and Wimborne Minster East, obviously. At the moment, all of my council surgeries, and those of my colleague, Councillor Atwell's, are held up at the Coal Hill Community Library. The demographics of this area have changed significantly since that became a pattern of behaviour. I've started having meetings down at Wimborne Town Football Club as well. That's best to serve people on Porter Jack development, and as they come on, skip online, all of the others as well. It seems to be favourable. It will depend on the level of demand that I get. I don't get very many people wanting to come in, I'll be honest. Like passing trade at best. But I want to be seen to be available. So if you ever have people who want to talk to somebody, send them my way. I'm more than happy to meet them. That's concluded. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Just to say for your information, the guide group came here.
Yeah.
Because I happened to know the guide leader, and she said, well, to talk about being the mayor and where the council works. And they did raise this issue with us. We've got a school council in Wimborne, so it's on the agenda for their next meeting. So they might contact you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Councillor Chucklebutter, do you want to say anything? No. So should we just go around the room and people update? So should we start? Councillor Brown?
Yes, thank you. I attended with a couple of other councillors the 20s Plenty seminar last week, and it was excellent. And thanks to Clark, information's now been circulated. And I'd quite like to see us have a further discussion on how we can, if we agree, how we can implement or go towards applying for a 20-mile-an-hour limit in the built-up area. I've also attended a couple of events at Walford Mill, and they seem to be doing well. They've got a good run up to Christmas. That's it for me.
Thank you. Councillor Danger.
Following the last Planet Wimborne meeting, we had an action put to me to make some social media content, and the idea of that was for greater outreach to people that aren't converted to green living and know about us. So I've made 2 posts, and they've been circulated to the members to review, just to make sure I'm on the right lines. But one is about sustainable living, and one is about overconsumption for clothes in the clothing industry. And that's what I've been up to for Planet Wimborne.
Thank you. Councillor James?
Nothing to report, Chairman.
Yeah. So, which one?
Only to support Councillor Brown's comments on the 2020, which I also attended. If you have access to the slideshow that was presented, there were 3, I think. It's very data dependent. It's not easy to summarise. I suppose culminating in that it's far nicer being hit by a car at 20 miles an hour than any other speed.
Thank you. Councillor Nash.
I'm afraid I have to report, Mayor, sorry.
Councillor Burt.
Councillor.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I met with Katie Bourne, who is along with yourself, Councillor Hart, who is the owner of Otter Gallery. And we were talking to her about the plein air that she organised in this, the last year, which was a phenomenal success. Unfortunately, she's closing her business, but the last I've heard is she is determined to carry on with organising the pleasure, which is undoubtedly of benefit to.
Yeah, I've received an email. I've been in contact with 106 Squadron, 69 Squadron, sorry, for the training call. I believe Councillor Sandy, so what I'm going to do is facilitate. Essentially, I've spoken to Nigel and he said, let's get together. So I'll grab you for a coffee if I may, in town, introduce you, and then we'll see where we go. So I'll just put those together. But that's
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Cheers. Two things, Chairman. Oxenford, we had our St Nicholas lunch at the beginning of the month. We had 14 members of Oxenford attended that, very pleasant lunch out at Stock. We've also received an invitation to go to Oxenford to celebrate 80 years of peace since the Second World War. Unfortunately, I think we will be quite busy ourselves because it's May the 9th. It's a long way to go. It's a whole day's journey. But if anyone wants to go, please let me know and I will inform them in Oxenford. It's Viviana are going, which is their Italian twinning. And I believe the other two, which is Coutance and Colditz. So, but as I said, I cannot go. And one other thing to report, Chairman, the notice boards. I know we've got 2 notice boards, but we haven't got, and there no commercial advertising like we had before.
It's in hand, just.
That's all right, because I took a whole load down the other day.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ryan.
Nothing to report, so I'm not in any liaison groups. If anything comes up, I'll be more to do it.
Thank you. Councillor Sandy.
Yes. Well, I attended the Christmas lights switch around. Shook it in and got some money in.
Well done.
Attended the children's parade last week, and the Boulogne French Twinning Association. We had a wine tasting, which was very successful, and we're looking forward to a few more events next year.
Thank you. Councillor Chatterwacker. Thank you, Chair. Okay. And then in terms of being the mayor, I'll stand up. I've been doing a number of fundraising activities that most of you have been supporting, so thanks very much for that. We're doing pretty well in terms of that. I think we're up over £4,000 now that will go to Wimborne and the local hospital. And we're going to do a charity collection on Saturday for organised the marching band. We've got a tombola going on because I've been on the shops begging and they give you all these gifts to use in the tombola, which is very good. And after Christmas, we've got a choir evening. We've organised 5 choirs to come and sing together at the Animal Centre. We'll organise an auction of promises when the businesses are going to hopefully contribute things that people can bid for, and again to continue to raise money. I'm really enjoying it, and thanks very much for your support. Okay. Going to item 6 now. Yeah. So item 6 is the full council minutes. So minutes of the full council meeting on 26th of November, and it's 1. Proposer, someone was there. Yes, Councillor Chakawata, seconder, Councillor Wheeler. All those in favour of agreeing those minutes? Anybody against? Any abstentions? No. And then we've got committee minutes and working group notes. So that's the planning and environment, 3rd of December, community events and liaison committee, 10th of December, and we just need to note those. Does anybody want to raise anything about those notes? Good. And item 8. So this is about the planning and environment committee, 3rd of December. So recommend a full council, the Wimborne Town council apply to land registry to adopt a specific piece of green space amenity land in Birchdale Road. And in fact, myself and councillor Wheeler and Kevin went to look at this piece of land. Councillor Wheeler, do you want to say a few words?
Yes, I mean, the green space to the left is all nice, and it actually extends to, you know, around the end where you would likely put an access onto, as you can see here, that piece there. And it kind of makes sense if we were able to do it possession, to be able to grab that piece of land. And then if there was any planning that was to come in a year's time, sounds like we've got a year to kind of sort this out, then, you know, access would become more of a headache for them than but to my mind, that's just one of a few aspects. One, that's part one. Part two needs to be an objection on urban sprawl, because you connect Culhill and Wimborne, so that's the last piece of green space in between. Then the ecology of the place, you know, there's so much wildlife in that area. It's a travesty if we ever allow building on it. But this would be one aspect that we could pursue. But I understand it's not going to be easy. It's not an easy thing. You can't just ask land registry to obviously possess, and they go, oh yes, no worries, we'll just give you the land. There's money involved, and there's a little bit of work to be done. I would think that probably needs a little bit of a, I'm going to look at the clerk here, but it could be that there needs to be, because of the amount of work involved, it could be that there needs to be a working group of some sort involved in looking into this.
So all I'd like to do is make full council aware that it's not an easy route, as Councillor Wheeler said. I would encourage the council to do it through our solicitors, so there'll be costs associated with it. I've been involved in adverse possession routes before, and they are very lengthy, just because of the inquiries that are made out to find if anyone's got an interest in that piece of land. Parish and town councils have done this before to secure an area to stop development. So it's not as if it's unprecedented. But what I would ask you to consider is, by doing this one, are we setting a precedent? Is it going to stop another route in the future? If the developer was to put in a further planning application at a future point, would there be other access points that could be considered? And Kev's done a lot of work on this with the Planning and Environment Committee, and there's a few options. It's made difficult by the old railway line issue, but what I'm saying is the Birchdale Avenue, is that the one and only access point? The question.
Okay, any comments? Councillor Richmond.
Thank you, Chair. This is a project that I started in 2018. Originally, when the estate was built, East Dorset required of the developer, and the developer, there were a number of developers involved in small developments, but they were required to add amenity spaces for the benefit, passive recreation of the residents. And there are a number of spaces on the site which we identified and which I made sure were not owned, but had been maintained by Dorset Council for 30 or 40 years. And that's what led to our approach to approach DC and involve them, and hope that they would simply take adverse possession of spaces that were required by their predecessors as part of planning requirement, and then subsequently transfer those areas, if they weren't going to keep to maintain them, to Wimborne Council, because that would be a benefit to the residents. This was one of those spaces, and with the delay in the whole issue being for a number of reasons, not the least of which was a change in obviously the town clerk and a pandemic arriving. With one thing and another, it has been delayed. It is unfortunate now that this is the subject, the pointed subject related to a planning application. It's unfortunate, but I think that we should address it.
Okay, thank you. Another, yes, councillor Bragg.
Referring back to the town clerk's comment, the other potential access areas to this area are the yellow lines, are they? Yellow arrows?
Yeah.
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 And who controls those? Who owns those? We don't know. So, if I'm correct, I'm just trying to work it out, you're saying that if we own that one, then any developer could go and try the other ones as well? Or should we try and get control of all of them?
The other areas aren't, the only, as I said, green space at Birchdale Road is the only community space. The other areas are just possible egress onto that field derived from map referencing, not necessarily walking around going, this is a way onto this field.
So they don't have the same status as the Birch.
They're not amenity spaces necessarily, but it's only based on map referencing, not physical.
Okay, councillor Richmond.
Okay, specifically with relation to access points, the one at the very bottom, the one second up from the bottom is the Birchdale one, I believe. That's
correct.
The one below that is at the end of a private road, which is currently unmade up and gravel coated, and therefore has complications of not being an adopted right of way. The right-hand arrow, double-ended arrow, is an electric substation that has just been renovated, upgraded, or whatever, presumably with the advent of all the additional homes. The very top of the picture, the lie of the land at the top of the picture is very different to the area at the bottom, which is, I would guess, why the developer has considered that bottom area. It's much higher, it's much wilder, there would be much more structural change required, and there are some areas that are significantly wetter than others. So relative to the top 2 points, I think they're geomorphologically more challenging as far as guys are concerned than the bottom ones, but the bottom ones have significant concerns.
Thank you. Councillor Wheeler.
So thank you, councillor Richmond, for giving us an update on that. So essentially we're back to Birchdale Road is an item that we can take forward. The others are really outside of our control, and we would have to do a planning. They would come under the other points that talked about ecology and the urban sprawl. But it would be really useful if we could take forward maybe the address possession. But if it's difficult, then it feels like we need a working group to work on it. Is that something that we should set up?
Thank you. Councillor Burt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mine's a simple question. Who actually owns the land at the moment? Who owns it?
The big space, the space we want to build on is owned by Barrett's, I believe.
No, I'm talking about the piece of land that it's suggested we ask the land registry to adopt. Now, that must be in somebody's ownership at the moment.
Yeah, it is.
So it's unregistered.
It's not registered.
Well, even if it's not registered, there could be still someone holding deeds.
Correct.
And the process will identify who has an interest in it.
And I presume that the land will be valued and we will have to pay the cost of acquiring it from whoever owns it now.
Sure.
And looking at the picture, it seems as though it's been left as an entrance into that other land, the hinterland. And if that's the case, it will hold a considerable value. So I just wondered whether, in fact, while this was being looked at, had anybody given any thought as to who the ownership is and what the cost of the land would be?
So my understanding is that we don't know who owns the land.
that's the whole point of setting up a working group, you know, and to find those things out. Councillor Richmond might know what I was saying.
Councillor Richmond.
When I gave the complete report to the officers in 2018, I gave contacts at the Land Registry and I gave a list of prices at the Land Registry. But the Land Registry were, it was the cost of registration. And I think because they were required to be amenity spaces and they had been maintained by DC, I don't think there was any greater significance to them at that point. It's just unfortunate this has kind of changed the perception of the value of it.
Thank you. So I think what Councillor Wheeler's suggesting is that in fact we don't take a vote on this. We set up a working group to look into this.
Yeah, so I believe that there's so many unknowns. We should get a working group set up that goes and finds out what that's worth to Councillor Burke's point, who owns it, again to Councillor Burke's point, and what the likely next steps would be. We'll bring it back to council, we'll put a proposal on the table when we know all the facts and we take it forward that way. Everybody's happy.
So do you want to make that proposal?
I'll make that proposal.
And I'm happy to second that proposal.
Seconded by Councillor Burke. All those in favour of that? Anybody against? Anybody abstentions? Okay, good. So we're on to 8.2 now. The Community and Liaison Committee, 10th of December, a recommendation to full council that a steering group is established with delegated authorities to submit a full application for Dorset's Town of 2026 and if successful, deliver the project with an agreed budget as per the group's terms of reference. So we've had quite a bit of traffic about this. So what I suggest we do is that we say to Councillor Richmond, do you want to just say a few words?
I'd like to make a comment.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I've read the Town of Culture 2026, which was, I think, Appendix 4. I've read the submission or the documentation that yourself and the Town Clerk put together, Appendix 5. And I've read the proposal to put together a steering group, which is Appendix 6. We have, as you pointed out in one of your recent emails, discussed this at a number of different full council meetings, but we haven't actually done anything more at full council level than sanction an expression of interest. An expression of interest is exactly that. I think the vote on that was 7 for and 4 against, and that was simply to express an interest. This is in no way, this is about procedure. This is not about whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing. We seemed then, in the actual discussion on the 29th, when I was actually absent through being ill, the record there shows that the actual definition was to simply express an interest. It wasn't to apply. Councillor Bartlett at one of the meetings, and this is confirmed in an email that I think most of us received this evening, did request that some evidence be required from the town that has experienced the accolade this year and see what the benefits were. And in the light of collecting that evidence, then we would be in a position to make a decision. But to my knowledge, there is no evidence that has been collected. I was concerned that in one of the minutes that may be approved shortly, one of the other committee meetings, that the chair said that we would be pleased to hear that an expression of interest had been successful. And that didn't make any sense to me because expression of interest was an expression of interest. An acknowledgement rather than being successful might be more appropriate. The presentation of the definitive evidence that we haven't seen we would be able to put together an understanding of the benefit to the town. I'm well aware that at one of our original discussions, the food bank issue, current likelihood of increases in precept, all of these were raised. And of course, not all of the town are in a position to quite happily accommodate all these slight increases. So to put that into the context of our spending something which perhaps we might not necessarily need to spend, I think that should be a priority. The document written on the 18th of November was very much a submission. In my view, it was supporting Wimborne and the likelihood of it being a successful outcome. That, to my mind, my personal mind, wasn't an expression of interest, and that was the only thing that the full council has sanctioned. So in the interest of accountability and openness, I think that, and in the absence of the definitive data that Councillor Bartlett mentioned in his recent email and that was mentioned in discussion, in the absence of that, I would propose that we defer any further discussion until that data is available and we can make an informed decision. So I'd like to propose exactly that we defer any further consideration of submissions of interest, whether or not one interprets those as being a lead to an application, that we look at data.
Just to clarify one or two things, what you said, Councillor Whitman. So with the expression of interest, lots of councils put in an expression of interest. The success came because they selected 4 councils to take forward to the sort of final stage. So that was, I think, that reference there. Councillor, you had down first, Councillor Nash.
Thanks. So just to reiterate that, I think the language is a little misleading, as Councillor Sadie mentioned during the Planning and Environment Committee not so long ago. The expression of interest, it's very clear in the literature what they mean by that, and it is an entry-level application to be considered to be invited to be an applicant for the town of Culture. I think that was pretty clear from the literature, but it seems like there's some confusion, and that's irritating. The second point I'd make is that the evidence you're looking for from the first town of Culture, Dorset Town of Culture, will be from, I think it was from March only last year, because it was the first time they'd awarded one. So actually the benefits probably won't be particularly clear. I think this is a bit of a jump into the deep rather than something we could evidence before we start going into it.
So on the second point, the first council that's had this award was Bridport, who were given it for whatever reason, but they only started it later in the year. That's why, isn't it? Town Clerk.
The data that's requested is just not out there because, as said, Bridport only ran it and didn't run it for a full year. They ran it for potentially 4 months and they haven't come to the end of it yet. And a town council within Dorset has not run this project for a year for the data to be available.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
I know I was one of the ones to put the vote against this. I think I brought this to the clerk's attention back in April after I'd been on a visit to Dorchester for one of their walkabouts. I don't see why we're rushing into it, to be quite honest. Does it matter if it's 26, 27, 28? I think we need the feedback from other councils as to what we should be expecting. Bridport has the added advantage, not only being a ancient or historic town, but they've also got the seaside or the harbour. And I think that actually adds to the appeal. We in Wimborne put on a very good show of all the things that go on in this town. And I just feel that these need to be coordinated. They don't need someone to come in and tell us how to do it. We have the folk festival, we have the arts festival, we have the history festival, we have the militia, we have the other group last year. We can do this. We don't need to spend £30,000 of council taxpayers in a very stuck together budget, because there are people in this town. The food bank, the applications for that are up 60% this year. 60% in a town that you or a lot of you believe is affluent. And I don't believe it is, because I've met some of those people and they're just saying, why are we doing this? You know, you put on these other things, you do it. You know, you don't need to spend this sort of money. So I am I'm completely against this. And I just think you ought to think very carefully about it and about how we're leading it. And I'm very sorry, Jeff, but I think you have to be very careful, because you actually are drama and what have you. And I think you should be declaring some sort of interest, and other members.
Okay, just to respond to that, I've done some full research into this town culture. What won't be successful is bringing loads of things in. What I want you to do is to look at the data, which is what Councillor Richmond is saying, about where in Wimborne people get the arts, where don't they get the arts, and to actually put in a plan that increases participation in the arts for people in Wimborne, rather than people coming into Wimborne to see Sabbath Wells or the National Theatre or whatever. So just have 10 o'clock to comment about declaring interest.
It's everyone's, as a councillor, you know whether you should declare an interest or not. There's a couple of items here that I think councillors should have declared an interest and haven't, but that's your decision.
Your personal decision, yeah.
Yeah, your personal decision, yeah.
Councillor Sandy.
As you'll remember, my concern with this was that various councillors hadn't fully read the prospectus that the people running this scheme put forward. And I agree with
Councillor
Councillor Nash that it's all set out, and it's quite comprehensive what they require of us. And I agree with Councillor Shepherd wholeheartedly when he says that, you know, an expression of interest is not an indication to proceed, but more of a collection of evidence to further inform a decision that might subsequently be made. That was one of the reasons why I raised some concern at the finance meeting, that there seemed to be a financial commitment arising out of what I saw as just simply a collection of evidence further, so we could look at it again. And it's nice that we are now having the discussion. But I think at the end of the day, you know, there's nothing wrong with applying for the town culture in principle. But I think as is now coming out, you know, we're starting to see it needs a little bit more discussion. And I agree with Councillor Roberts that does it need to be 2025, 27? You know, let's do it properly, where we're all on board, and then we can make it successful, because we do have in this town a lot of culture going on, and it would be great if we could support that culture. What I fear with this scheme is there's a tendency, and in my interpretation of it, is that there's a culture that they want to see come into any town of culture, not necessarily enhance the culture that's already there. But this is something that we could discuss, and this is all. So that's what I would.
Thank you. Councillor Jack's had his hand up for some time.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of points, really. I mean, at the last community events and liaison committee, there was quite a few members of organisations within the town present, and I think every one of them was very supportive of this application. And the representative from Walford Mill talked about the grant they've been given recently, which would enable them to do outreach work in certain craft areas. And I think the thing that excites me about this town of culture bid is not so much that necessarily that you can enhance what we currently do, but you can do additional things. And we've been talking earlier on today about antisocial behaviour. We've been talking about kids who are not engaging in the community. There are ways in which you can use culture, and that could be arts, sport, a whole range of things, to actually engage with people who can't, through circumstance or money or whatever, afford to take part in those things now. And it's also where you can start to breed some pride in the town, but particularly the new estate areas who may not feel integrated at the moment. So whether that's this year, next year, or whatever, I think it's a really exciting prospect. And if we're awfully at raising extra funding, we would still get £30,000 from Dorset Council. So there's still a doubling of our investment to be taken into account.
Thank you. So Nash.
Yes, and sorry, just to very quickly come back to Councillor Sandy. You did say when we discussed this previously that I hadn't done the reading, and I did the reading. Actually, I've come round to realising that it's not particularly prescriptive. It's very much in arts and culture bent, but it leaves you free will to do whatever the hell comes within that. I'd also like to make the counterpoint that whilst the point which Bill's just made was that whilst we are spending money on this, there is money coming in from the county council, and these things really do make a difference to young lives. So for the poorer amongst us, then this is, in my opinion, money well spent. I think it's not an enormous sum.
Okay.
Sorry, and one very last point was the counterpoint to the argument that it's gone again. Sorry. Get back on.
Come back.
Thank you.
Sorry, come to you next.
My assessment of the full council discussion, which is the main one, is that we made an expression of interest. Expression of interest. I won't be told that that was a very clear a run-up to an application. If that was in the intention, then the words should have been the words expressed. An expression of interest is not legally precursor to an application. The full council needs to consider this. What I suggested in my proposal there was that more detail be given to full council and the decision made based on that, rather than the suggestion that it was also terribly obvious and I've misunderstood the situation.
Thank you. Councillor Burt.
Yeah, just, Mr. Mayor, just to begin with, on page 16 of the little brochure that sets all this out, it says Dorset Council will contribute 30,000 as seed investment. And the next line, this must be matched pound for pound by the applicants. Now, as I read that, that means to get 30,000, you've got to put 30,000 in. We will have our application matched pound by pound. Tucked away in there, and also in the other documents prepared by the officers, it's a mention of Allendale House. I think I only bought it once in several places, but I thought it ought to be the East Dorset Heritage Trust. Has not been mentioned, but as a trustee of the East Dorset Heritage Trust and Allendale House, perhaps I'm one that should declare an interest because of it's tucked away. And I wonder if I could ask through you, Mr. Mayor, whether that is the point that the town clerk was making on the question of interest.
All right. Yes.
Yes, no, it wasn't. It was into something previously mentioned on the agenda. So I think Lawrence had a hand.
Councillor Hett.
Thank you. So when it was first brought forward about this, the great deal of money was what scared me at first, that I did vote against this to start with. And in the most recent events committee, I've done an extension because I want more information. But what I thought was not very clear at the beginning is that this money, we have it in the budget. As the town clerk's explained, we've got 15,000 already that we can use for the first year, and then you can spread the next bit onto the year after, even though it's just 1 year that you'd have the town of culture. So after that was explained, I thought, okay, that's interesting that the money's there, and then we've got the opportunity for grants. But mostly I thought, well, these events, they're going to have to be impressive. When it came to like, they're actually focusing money into projects, as outreach, as Councillor Jaggs has said, especially with new community members, I thought that was really insightful, and I don't think that was clear at the beginning. So I wanted to just express how knowing that was actually quite exciting, because there's so many more people that we can reach who wouldn't necessarily have attended an event, because as Councillor Roberts says, we have very good events already, but the aspect of projects, especially for young people, was what I thought, that's definitely something I wasn't aware of from the literature, so I just thought I'd share that was quite good to know.
And also just to reiterate that, my understanding really was that you plan for what you want to do. But having really researched it now, if we want to be successful to win it, we have to focus it on the people of Wimborne and those people getting benefit from it, not just loads of people coming to watch Sadler's Wells or the National Opera comes at the Tivoli. So I think that's a point well made. Councillor Nash. Sorry, I got right.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, at first I was on balance, I thought it was a good thing. And so I supported it. Having sort of been presented with all the evidence that we've got today, I'd like to support Councillor Jaggs and say it really is, I think, and Lauren, Councillor Hector, I think it's a really good place to actually start to build on what we've got already. I mean, looking at that matrix of all the organisations involved, we can see what we have been doing, and then what we really can do, where we can go next. And as you say, building in to Wimborne all those people that are newly arrived, I think is an excellent thing. I don't agree that it's a question of them telling us what to do. To be honest, I think we actually say this is our plan, and looking at sort of the talent around, I think we can actually come up with a good plan. And I don't think we'll have people forced upon us. We won't have sort of like multiculturalism forced upon us. We make it what it is, and we make it what's relevant to Wimborne today. And another point, say, well, it's the money. Well, actually, is it binary? If we spend on this, does that mean we can't spend on food banks? Alternatively, if we don't spend on this, does that mean we will definitely spend on food banks? The fact is, it's not binary, is it? So I think on balance, and last, take Councillor Richmond's and Councillor Roberts' points. Okay, fine. We could put it back a year. We could put it back 2 years. We might have a better idea. But the fact is, we've got this opportunity now. But why don't we just go forward with it now?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Councillor Nash.
Sorry, just to fill in my errant memory earlier, I do apologise, and thanks for coming back me through steps. Early adoption in this sort of thing, where other councils will be thinking, maybe we should leave this till 26, 27, might get us a real good head start on the application process. I'd like to come back to Councillor Richmond and say, the literature really does say that we submit an application of interest. That is then followed by successful applicants being invited to make full applications. I think that language is very clear. And coming to thank you, Councillor Ryan's point. If we're not successful in our application, there's nothing to stop us doing this anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Next.
Yeah, can I go back to the beginning when this was first proposed? One of the ideas which I think you, Mayor, were pushing forward was about inclusion. That's been one of the principal tenets of what we've been aiming to produce. And the opportunities to include the people that have moved newly to the town was something that we were all quite keen on doing, because we've all heard the stories about how people feel left out. On Sunday, I was over in Quarterjack Park and spent a couple of hours talking to people over there. And I can confirm that there was a feeling that they don't feel particularly part of it and would like to be part of it. And there are things like we know with the football club where we can really sort of push forward with that and include people that aren't normally included in the folk festival and all those other events that we do so well.
Okay, councillor Wheeler.
So change and big things that come to a council are often scary, and I get that. And sometimes the amount of literature means that people miss certain key elements of it. For me, the key points that key benefits of taking this forward are that you can make it about the youth, you can make it about inclusion of the new areas that are coming over town, you can make it about food banks and what you do to develop a culture around food banks. You can develop youth. There's a lot that can hang off of this, and it gives you a framework and a time frame to work to move forward. It doesn't leave things kicking the can down the road. So I just want people to kind of open their minds a little bit and think, yeah, it's a scary amount of money, but it's not a massive amount of money in the whole grand scheme of things when taken over the course of a couple of years, and the money that we get back. And the benefits, I think, of where we can take this, we're not being done to. We have to think creatively about how we use this and where we.
Councillor Burt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Besides the financial aspect, which we've mentioned, and as mentioned in the document, and we have to match it pound by pound. Again, looking on page 7, it says we'll invite a maximum of 4 applicants. So out of all the towns and parishes, there will only be 4 that will actually finally go through to be considered. And then it lists the sort of things that they want to know. We want to know more about your approach to the following. And there's a long list. Now, to satisfy everything, to make an application, there's a lot of work that's got to be done by somebody.
Yep.
And I'm just wondering again whether our staff are in a position to take on what, in fact, when you read this thing through, is a very, very substantial amount of work that has to go in to making the application. And then, as I say, there's the financial side. We have to match it pound by pound of what the Dorset Council, unfortunately, it still gets called the Dorset County Council, which I was on many years ago, but it's the Dorset Council, and we've got to match the funding that they put in. But there's a tremendous amount of work to do this, and I just wonder whether at the moment this town council is in a position to go forward at this time.
So just to add a few facts in there, they've selected us as one of the last 4 for this.
They have.
We have to, yes.
Well, I didn't think we'd made an application.
So you have to put an expression of interest. So we did that.
Sorry,
Yes.
just for Councillor Burt's information, so the expression of interest was submitted, and out of those expressions of interest, 4 councillors have been invited to submit a full application, and we are one of those 4, along with Ferndown, Swanage, Sherborne.
Stiff competition.
Yes.
Okay, let's stay with the name debate. So, Councillor Sandy.
It seems to me that there is, I think we're all in agreement that in principle, the idea of the town culture is a good thing. I think as Councillor Burt's very well pointed out, there's an awful lot of work that's got to be put into this. And I think as Councillor Shepherd, which I wholly support what he said, with the expression of interest, to my mind seems to have been an application. Because we're now on to the next stage. But let's set that aside. The fact that we talked about this at length, and we've all got different ideas, but I think we've all broadly agreed that we'd like to do this if we can do it on the right terms for Wimborne. I think we need more time. I just think to try and rush it through, to meet what it is, 25th of January, it's just, unfortunately, it's too much. So I would urge council to put it back so that we can all contribute to this, and we can make sure that when we commit that £30,000, it's been done with proper deliberation, and we're all agreed on it, rather than it being, having dissenting voices.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hart.
Just to clarify, sorry, I just wanted to make it clear that the idea behind the Appendix 6, which was draft terms of reference for steering group, there was two clear parts to that. If you just scroll down slightly, number one, they given the responsibility to put the application in by the 27th of January, and it's by a process of collaboration with all the groups that are very on board with this as a project. If successful, then they take on running the project, but that is under the "is successful" comment.
Yeah. Councillor Richmond.
Thanks, Chairman. You may recall that about half an hour ago, at the very end, I said I propose that we defer any decision as to whether or not to proceed until such time as the information has been assembled. So, in fact, you might notice that I haven't said that I was totally against the whole project. What I've been against is the fact that full council is the group, the committee, the council that makes decisions. And the only decisions that full council has made was to express an interest. That was my biggest concern. And I'm concerned that it has progressed without referral back to full council. So if I made a proposal to do that, either we look for a seconder, and if there isn't a seconder, then we ignore it and we revert to a proposal that I quoted from the minutes, which you yourself made. I also quoted the 15th of January as being a deadline, which I got from the documentation supplied by the arts group, and which you corrected me as being to the 27th. So I can only say, put my hands up and say, well, I got it from the source, Gov. So we're in that situation that either we get a seconder on my proposal or we revert to your proposal. And if we revert to your proposal, then I would like to add something else.
I will second.
So, well, Councillor Billy.
Yeah.
I'd like us to go ahead. Thank you, Matt. I'd like us to carry on with what Councillor Richmond said, so we can bring that to a vote, rather than me saying it.
So the proposer, the seconder is Councillor Sandy.
Can I just ask something, Chairman? Will the bid be involved in this in any way, money-wise?
Yes.
But they're mentioned in the documentation.
Yeah, they are on steering group.
I mean, they take quite a lot of money.
Anyway, so we've got the proposer. You've got a second. Does anybody, so, sorry, I'm going to that.
Yeah, but something, what exactly are we proposing?
Councillor Richmond, can you say your proposal again? Sorry.
Okay, I proposed to defer the decision on making a submission until such time as that we had a clearer idea of the plan and the costs that were going to be projected onto the full council.
Okay, thank you. We've got a second there. So just think about that. All those in favour, raise their hands. All those against?
Sorry, hold on. I want to share it. Bill, and Ian.
Can we have it as a recorded vote, Chairman, please?
Yeah, I've made a note who's for that.
Councillor Bird.
Yeah.
All those against?
Simon. Thank you. Any abstentions?
Any abstentions? No abstentions?
Thank you.
No. Okay, so that wasn't carried.
So what was the result, please?
So the result was that the proposal wasn't carried.
What were the numbers?
So there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 against. 4 in favour, 9 against.
Thank you. Where do we go now in terms of the proposal in the agenda?
Someone needs to make the proposal, please.
When is the former sitting group?
Okay, do you want to amend the proposal? Councillor Nash, so, shall I just read that out, or do we all know it?
With authority to make the application.
Yeah. Submit a full application for Dorset's Town Agriculture 2026. Okay, so.
Can I just make one comment?
Mm.
I feel it's very dangerous to put all this money into a steering group. It's a lot of money to be just individually thought about. And I don't agree with it. It's
We've agreed,
not-
that's just been done.
Just to make one thing clear, certainly points I've picked up from like Weymouth and Bridport is that they put 30,000 in, Dawes put 30,000 in, but then they were helped to apply for an Arts Council grant. So Weymouth have got a budget of 200,000 for the year. They put 30,000 in. So just to clarify that. Councillor Richard.
Thank you, Chair. Okay. Prior to creating such a long discussion, which I apologise for, relative to the proposal that was made, that I think you made, or the text of which I quoted in my email to everybody, I would like to propose an amendment to that. And that related to the fact that your recommendation to full council was a steering group was established, and I wanted to change the wording to, and in the interests of both accountability and openness, to present to full council for approval the detailed plans, extent, scale and costings of established plans to approve to any submission before a full application to Dorset's Town. I wanted to change the wording. I submitted that wording to the town clerk, and the town clerk felt that that undermined the submission of interest. I can't quite see why that would be, because this is asking for accountability to full council and not to a steering group. I would question whether or not a steering group, our standing orders would permit a steering group to have that degree of control over that amount of finance. So I have that wording, which I propose is added and then considered.
Councillor,
Let's put it in the bond, Chair.
sorry?
Let's put it in the bond, if we may.
No, the proposer has to agree to the amendment first, or it doesn't stand.
May I ask a question? Coming back to the full council with the proposal detail would be on the 17th of, sorry, when's the next full council?
28.
And the application has to be in by the 27th?
Yeah.
So this makes this very tricky. Is there a simple way we can do this by email, I agree, or something like that?
That's an extraordinary meeting.
Or an extraordinary meeting, I think, yeah. Because I don't think it's a bad proposal, I just think it's.
Councillor Wheeler.
So given the emotion that's around this, I would propose that we need an extraordinary meeting for those that are interested to come and to have a look at those plans, just go through those and rubber stamp it, just to keep everybody on board with the power and where we go, if people are minded.
Councillor Ryan.
I mean, the problem is a small group of people coming in quickly rubber stamp it. I'm sure like, it does really need to go to a full council meeting.
I think, yeah, so I am proposing that full council get together, not just a discrete. It basically, at all comers, it will be a one subject meeting, just to understand.
It would need to be
But I think
January.
the problem with what, when you use the word rubber stamp, when you're basically saying the working group will come forward with something, the council looks at stamps it. That's not what would happen. In fact, if it's going to come to an extraordinary meeting of the council, no, I don't disagree with that. The council makes a decision. It will be open to make a decision, not committed.
That's terminology.
You've withdrawn the words rubber stamp.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, but it's rubber stamp for, rubber stamp against. It doesn't matter, but yes.
All right, so having looked at the the proposed amendment to the original recommendation, it says to present to full council for approval the more detailed plans, extent, scale and costings once established prior to approval to the submission of a full application. So effectively, we will have 10, 15 working days to turn this around. You're not going to get detailed plans, extent, scale and costings to everyone's satisfaction here. I think this is just going to fail flat on its feet. That's just me being realistic.
No, there's a lot of work.
Councillor Jacks.
Yeah, I think my understanding of the application is it will be setting out a direction. We will not have detailed plans available to us by the end of January. This part of this is about working with the community, working with partners, trying to access funding. So by the time you get to the year start, 26, yeah, that's when you know how much income is going in, all of the different work streams you see. So you're setting out on a path where the minimum amount to spend will be 60,000.
Councillor Sandy.
Why don't we proceed with the extraordinary meeting? And this, well, we've got.
Yeah, that's the extraordinary meeting.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good point just made there, and also there, that there won't be the detail, but they're not looking for that. They're looking at what is it you're hoping to get out of this Wimborne? So I think that sort of thinking we can bring to a meeting, but we can't bring, Town Clerk's quite right, we're not going to be able to say £10,000 on this, £10,000 on that. Councillor,
I worry that we're suspending the decision that we will make today. We're making that decision just to suspend it for another day when we know we may not get those facts at a later date. I think we need to be brave enough. Let's make the decision today. We're fluffing around too much.
Councillor,
I completely agree with Councillor Chickamauga. As far as I'm concerned, I see the town of culture being an exercise in cooperation and cross-fertilisation of the fantastic cultural events we already have in Wimborne. There is no way that before the 28th of January, 27th of January, that we could possibly have any idea of how that is going to be devised, how it is going to be broadened, how it is going to include all the different aspects of our current Wimborne society with all its disparate groups that have suddenly arrived in town. I think it's essential that we have the year that we will have in order to plan what we're going to do in the town for the town culture. To suggest that we can have costings and even half the ideas that will come forward within a matter of 15 working days, was it? I think it's just not feasible. I completely agree that we should grasp this nettle and we should vote in favour of putting forward a full application for the town culture. And I have absolutely no doubt, with the enthusiasm of other councillors and with the team that we've got working for us, that we'll make a great success of this. If you just look at the fantastic experience that is within this town when it comes to running cultural activities, if we can harness that, get it to cooperate, and also at the same time assess the needs of our community, be it the people who use the food bank, for whom again I'm delivering tomorrow, so I do know about these people, whether it's the people who use the food bank or the people who are not aware of the disparate societal levels within our society. I think we should be brave, be bold, and £200,000 for the investment of 30,000 is a bargain.
thank you. Town Clerk.
Well, all I was going to do is to try and bring us back to, we had a proposal that came out of the committee and it got proposed by Councillor Nash. Councillor Richmond proposed an amendment and I need to go back to find out if the amendment is agreed or not before we go any further forward.
Right.
Sorry, Councillor Richmond.
Has the amendment been
I
seconded?
accept Councillor Billington's comments. You might notice that my first concern was that full council were the people that made the decisions. And my amendment is a continuation of that, that acknowledged you cannot present a complete performance plan But I am concerned that a steering group is given authorisation and it's not a decision made at full council. That was the purpose of my amendment. I simply wanted to retain full council to have the say to to cut back whatever in the light of how the full council felt. So I'm not trying to be awkward, I'm just trying to be procedurally correct.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, Sandy.
Well, it seems to me that if the application's got to go in on the 27th, then why don't we have a meeting on the 26th? Then we'll have all the information that's in the application.
Yeah, that's been.
Councillor Wheeler.
So I know Councillor Nash, probably where you're going with this is to kind of draw out what you want to propose, along with the words you have. But I think where I am is if we were to turn up on the 26th with a full plan of exactly what we're going to do and exactly costed, I wouldn't support it, because you just cannot know in such a short space of time where you're going to go. So that isn't going to happen. What I think we need to do, pulling together Councillor Richmond's and Councillor Nash's proposal, would be to have the application completed by the 26th with all the detail that is possible, and then it becomes the 26th with all of that presented in front of us. That becomes our decision point, is whether to go forward or not rubber stamp, go forward or not with the application. That's how I'd like the wording to be, but that's between Councillor Richmond and Councillor Nash.
So you suggesting a full council 26th?
I am.
Can I just ask, which month are you talking about?
January.
Oh, you say you're going to have the meeting, then you're going to have a council meeting on the Sunday? Well, I won't be there, that's sure.
Tom Clark, can you help us out here?
So basically, the full application had to cover those areas fully pointed there.
Yeah.
The full council has to be happy, weak word, sorry, it's such a weak word, that any recommendation with an amendment will meet the specification in those bullet points in terms of depth of detail. And I do not think that you're going to get the depth of detail that I think that Councillor Richmond is looking for in a application that just has those bullet points.
Councillor Sanders.
Got to put all of that in there on the 27th, then surely it's not unreasonable to say it's going to be available for us to look at on the 26th.
Yeah, that's what I agree. No, I think I agree, and we're all getting lost a little bit with emotion. And I think there's a high amount of details required from Councillor Richmond. All I'm suggesting is that we do the process, we come back with whatever it is on the 26th, we look at that amount of, and if it's available before, then and you can't make the 26th council vote, then you have the right to look at it earlier as and when that information becomes available. And then we sit and make a decision on the available evidence. And if we haven't got enough for Councillor Richmond, then we haven't got enough for Councillor Richmond. But if we've got enough for everybody else, then it goes forward. If we haven't, and everybody starts to fall away because we can't see that clarity, then that is why you have the meeting on the 26th.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a point of interest on this. Do our standing orders allow us to have a meeting on a Sunday?
No, they don't.
Because if that's the case, that's wrong. And this council should not go down the route of starting, keep talking about the 26th of January, and that's a Sunday. I'm otherwise engaged, I certainly wouldn't be here, and I don't think our standing orders, so on a point of order, I would like it assessed to know when we can have the meeting legitimately.
The town clerk saying, the standing order say we can't meet on Sunday.
Well, the legislation says we can't meet on Sunday anyway. My recommendation would be that we give ourselves at least a week to look at it at an extraordinary full council meeting. And then if anyone suggests or recommendations are made to change or amend the application, it gives the office time to do that.
So you do it Tuesday for 27th. That would say.
if it works, be the 21st, and what we might have to double up with something else.
No,
Councillor Nash, then Councillor Richmond.
Thank you, Chair. So if I might ask you a question of the clerk, do you think it's reasonable to expect this level of work, a framework for fulfilling these criteria, not a costed and precise detail, but do you think it's reasonable to do that a week before an extraordinary meeting to give us plenty of time to consider it? Is that a reasonable request?
So the idea was that the steering group would get together and collaborate on putting the application in, and I still believe that's the way forward. We would have to bring the deadline forward for that steering group to meet and put it all together by the 21st.
So again,
Yes,
is
yes.
it reasonable?
I can't give you a 100% guarantee, but we'll try our best.
In reality, the closing date of 27th, we have it together, we'll have it all together a few days before then. Councillor Richmond.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Wheeler has summarised pretty much all of that I felt, that it should be a full council decision. I would point out that in your steering group document, you state quite clearly the Nolan principles on which we all stand accountable. Openness and accountability be two of the things. And if we just say, who cares? Yeah, steering group, do what you want. I think we've been very responsible and we've approached, and I agree 100% with Councillor Wheeler. We are all accountable and we are being open.
to try and get this nailed, councillor Nash, the proposal then would be that the steering group comes together, completes as much on this as possible for an extraordinary meeting on the 21st for full council to look at what is there and make a decision. Is that
Effectively, the bit that gets removed is the authority to actually make the application without the permission of the council. Yeah.
and I'm happy to second that proposal.
Okay, are you all clear on the proposal is? Yes, yes. Okay, all those in favour? All those against? Abstentions? 2, 3. Okay.
It's the steering committee.
Well, it's in the papers actually, isn't it?
Yeah, whoever wants to be on it, maybe some councillors.
Okay, should we move on to item 9, grant applications? Okay, to consider a grant application from Life Education for £1,015 and note all grants awarded by the town council to date. And I think the town clerk wants the lead on this.
If that's all right, because I think usually councillor Morgan would lead as the chairman of finance governance, but he hasn't been well. And so I just wanted to remind the full council that we had a budget set at the start of the year. We are over budget by £800 and £1,800. I would ask councillors to refer to the organisation's accounts because I believe their reserves are healthier than ours. And yeah, you don't have to make it in full. You can make it in part. You can make it in full, or you don't make it. It's up to you, really. So that's my bit.
No, I think if we're overspending on that budget, and if this organisation's got substantial reserves, we should not be supporting it. Councillor Nash.
Yep, completely agree. They're £500,000 in the black. They have enough money to run their staff for a year without any contribution. I think it's a great cause. I think they do good work, but I think it's things that schools should be paying for, and if they're a charitable status, that's their decision. Sadly, I think this is passable.
Yeah. Do we need to vote on this?
Yes, it proposes a seconder.
So you want to propose that?
Sure.
Second by councillor Chakalwata. All those in favour? Anybody against? Any abstentions? No, there we go. Okay, item 10 is insurance renewal. So you've got, I think we've got 3 quotes from December 2024 to November 2027. The town clerk, the notes I've got here, says that herself and the financial officer looked at the 3 quotes and really wants a decision from us on this. Any comments? Councillor Nash.
Sorry, I keep waiting. I was a little bit surprised on the Zurich quote, which I think was the third one. There was no actual costing on that quote. It was only in the summary. Did I
And
miss it?
they have sent, that's what we should have got, shouldn't you? Which is the.
I can't see that from
Okay.
There's a summary, isn't there?
The summary had the total cost for the Zurich quote, but there wasn't one on the actual.
One on the application, no.
Yeah, that was.
There you
I thought I
go.
missed this.
It's to make us.
So just to double check that that is accurate.
It is, actually, they sent in an updated version today and it's gone down by £70.
Suspicious.
Because they've changed one of the sections of the schedules from 12 months to 36 months. It's a £70 adjustment, basically.
Okay, does anyone propose the quotes? What you're thinking?
I mean, the recommendation from the office is to go with Zurich, they're cheaper, it's value for money. I and Jenny have used them before, no issues with them.
Okay, councillor.
Yes, I'm really willing to accept that, because I don't really know, to be honest, that much about the ins and outs of insurance that council needs. And if that's your opinion, I would be willing to support that.
Okay, shall I propose that? Someone like to second it, councillor Nash, all those in favour? All, that's everyone's. Thank you. Okay, on to item 11, which is the cemetery. Just to notice the activity report from 1st of April to 3rd of October 2024. To note, and then secondly, to note the recent EICH report for the cemetery lodge. And the town clerk is going to lead on this.
There was a couple of issues reported by the tenants at the cemetery lodge with regards to white goods kept blowing up. So we've had it checked out, and as a result, we had to do a 5-year electrical well testing, and it highlighted a number of issues. They've all been addressed, but obviously there's been a cost implication to that. Health and safety, the work went ahead.
Okay, so what do you want us to do?
Just to note it, really, just note it.
Okay, everyone. Okay, motion on councillor Wheeler, item 12, youth service provision. So councillor Wheeler.
So, I'm kind of passionate about, trying to put together a youth, service provision in town. And I put together a proposition here because I wanted to drive things forward. I attended the Reef, a while back, and I'm struck that it's just, you know, it's just a beautiful centre. It's a brilliant place for children to go. And so what I tried to do in my proposition is to give a number of like bronze, silver, gold sort of type avenues that we could go. And you know, there's a lot of things in there. There's a lot for you to digest. So my proposal tonight would be to give everybody a deferral. So I'd like to defer it until the January meeting to give everybody a chance to have a look at it. As it's a proposition, of course, it's come out of my brain. But if anybody's got any ideas, I never get offended, right? So please, if you have any updates that you wish to put it, if you want to meet me for a coffee and we'll do it live, I'm happy to go down that. If you have any recommendations or particular ones that you're more passionate about in terms of route, then again, please contact me before next town council, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions. First one from Councillor Roberts.
Excuse me, my coat, but it's cold in here. Councillor Bartlett rang me this afternoon to ask me to put to you that the Dorset Council is the statutory authority to provide youth services. They have got a place in mind for it. It at the moment has a tenant in it who is squatting illegally because they have no license. And once they can remove them, there will be provision there for youth services. So he just told me to use that.
We have discussed that. I think we need to think bigger, and we also need to think about the outlying areas of the town. Now we're not just an internal Wimborne centric space. You know, we've got a massive village. Quarterjack. We've got a great big one up in Cranbourne. We've got to find a way of accommodating those. and we're not talking small kind of, let's get children after they're broken. My proposal is to give children a chance to do something and maybe stop them from going down the antisocial behaviour, a place to go, a place to let off steam, all of those great things. So I'm conscious of the Councillor Bartlett and his work. I wouldn't seek to stop it. Happy for him to continue, but I do want to drive forward something a little bit more holistic.
Councillor Brown.
Yeah, thanks, councillor Wheeler. I think it's a brilliant proposal that we put there, and I'd love to take up your offer of talking some more with you on that. I've been part of a group meeting before I was a councillor even, involving some of the previous employees at Planet and some other interested people. My own background, in case anybody doesn't know, I don't just do shouting. I spent 40 years in children's work. I'm a qualified social worker, and I've spent the last 15 years of my time in child protection and chairing child protection meetings. So I've got a bit of background that I hope will be relevant to all this. The space that I think Councillor Bartlett's talking about, I don't see this as either or. I think we could, do exactly what you're saying down at maybe the rugby club, which isn't a great building and wouldn't be very accessible. But we do need to be thinking bigger. There is, though, I think the same point that Anne made there about the council, Dorset Council's primary responsibility is this. If we're taking it on from them, we need to have a proper negotiation with them about that and how that's worked.
Yeah, Town Clerk.
So I've spoken to the lead Dorset Council officer regarding who delivers youth service provision within Dorset. And the statutory responsibility for a tier 1 local authority, which is Dorset Council, is a sufficiency duty. And that is as reasonable practicably to meet our local needs. And that sufficiency duty is through a collaborative process with other organisations. Burndown, Burwood, Porthmullen, to name a few, are youth service provisions that are either run by the town or parish council or a third party. So it's not a do or must from Dorset Council, it's a mixture.
Okay, and just for clarity, I agree. I don't think it's either or. I think all these things should and can coexist.
Councillor Chakawati.
Thank you. I think it's a good idea. I take the issue of this council where they've been, what young children who are teenagers, and most of their friends, they'll probably be the ones who get into trouble at least. So I'm waiting for the council. We live here, my parents, but the vested interest, so we should run the proposal as quickly as we can.
Thank you. Councillor Nash.
Just a question, where is this site that, Councillor Bartlett was talking about?
Where is this site?
I know, it's the old St John's ambulance buildings, which are behind the Allendale Centre. And there are 2 large garages, there's 2 rooms, toilets. They have, there is something in the process about a funding proposal that's being worked on, but because of all the stuff that's gone on nationally and within the council on funding, things have got delayed. There's a Dorset Council officer who was supposed to be coming to talk to the council, us, about what they are hoping to do and propose and support, but it's been delayed for their reasons. So we need to hear from them, I think, about what they're prepared to put in.
Yeah. Councillor Billington.
Yeah, along with, I think everybody else here, Councillor Wheeler, thank you very much indeed for doing this. I think it was an excellent piece of work, and it's a bit of a spur for the rest of us to see what we can get going. I would really like to see some figures.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any way of getting hold of any costings and timelines, but that would be sort of the icing on the cake of the discussion document.
Okay, thank you. So if we defer it, do we need to vote on it or we just?
I think just to cover up that.
I'll propose to defer to give us more time to consider it.
And your second, Councillor, all in favour? Delegates?
Please do get in touch.
All those against? Any abstentions? Okay. Right, nearly there. Item 13, correspondence consultations. So you've got there correspondence from Planet Wimborne, correspondence from Mosaic Charity, correspondence from Dorset Council.
So, sorry to interrupt, but just the interesting one is Appendix 19. This is really boring, I know, but it's the council tax base figures. Is it opening? Doesn't want to open. Oh yeah, here we go. So if we scroll down all the way, we are at an increase of, I think it's 6%. No, stop. Wimborne, Minster. Yeah, 6.4%. So that means that our bandy's gone down. It was a minus figure in terms of our precept.
Does everyone know what that means?
Could you please explain that?
Okay, let me get this right. So, local government refer to a band D level to show how how our precept is calculated on an annual basis. So, our band Ds are looked at as properties annually, and our band D property's gone up from 3,889.6 to 4,139.5, which is a 6.4% increase. That means that the spread of the precept is across more houses than last year, and that is an equivalent, I think it's about £1.80 per annum across the band D. It's nice to get a percentage increase. If it was a 0 to 1, 2%, it hardly made any difference. And if it was a minus, it would obviously increase our precept.
Okay, councillor Burt.
Yeah, I just want to clarify on the band D. I know it's 4 or 5 years since I, for many years, chaired the finance committee. It's the band D equivalent, I think. All those properties, A, B, C, come in at the percentage below the band D, and the EHF, the ones above. And the band D figure takes into account all property taken back to band D equivalent. And you make your precept on that. I don't know that it necessarily will show up the extra number of houses that have been built, because all of those that have been built are way above band D, and so they will count, perhaps in some cases they will count as 2 houses, because they will be, their base rate will be double the band D equivalent.
Yeah.
It is confusing. What some councils try and do when they set a budget is they try and work out what their band D is going to be before they set the budget, and it's a bit of a calculated gamble. They say, oh, it might be 3%, so we'll just add 3% on. What we've done is set a budget, taking into account what we think our income would be, what we think our expenditure would be.
The government used to tell us what our band D equivalent was. Don't they do that now?
No, so the figures came very late from Dorset Council. They came in last week or the week before. So it was after we'd agreed the budget.
Okay. Moving on to item 14. Sorry.
Sorry. Under item 13, I wanted to update you about the situation with the fire service. And I thought last meeting made an agreement to accept an informal invitation to visit the Wimborne fire station. But the town clerk said that we didn't quite get to that, so I'd now like to formally propose that we accept the informal invitation to visit as a group the Wimborne fire station to gain an understanding of the scope of their responsibilities and be informed about their working practices and challenges. And the purpose is similar to a recent visit we did with the Wimborne police station, where we were briefed upon operations and shortcomings of the system.
Okay. we need to take a vote on that?
Well, it's a proposal, so you need a seconder. And bear in mind where this has come from. You still have a meeting with the, what's his,
The chief fire officer. on
Charlie,
January
the chief,
17th.
yeah, so that's what full council agreed to, was for councillor Brown to go and meet the chief fire officer. But on top of that, what councillor Brown's proposing is to have a second meeting, an informal meeting to visit the station.
And seconded it here, and all those in favour? That's great, idea. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay. Item 14, future meetings, so they're all there for you to see. Anybody got any, under item 15, any motions they want to bring to future meetings, any topics?
Just for the second message, a while back, we spoke about the telephone booths in town. I had to locate it, by the way, I got password in town, and now, I think we're going to look into the benefit of either we're going to acquire them or not. I don't know whether that came around again or.
No, it hasn't. Basically, I was tasked with going away and working out an annual maintenance cost.
Thank you.
It's ongoing.
That's good, thank you.
Any other motions? Councillor Brown?
Could we take forward this 2020 idea, please, at the meeting? I don't know, how do we progress that?
So the deputy clerk informed me that it's on the agenda for PEC, so for planning. So any recommendations from planning will have to come through.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to close the meeting at 8:50.